Federal officers have been caught shooting Americans to death on tape. These shootings were caught on video. That has changed everything. If these were just accounts or reports, who knows what people would actually know about the facts. This is the kind of evidence that would make for slam dunk cases in court, although we are in a moment where the federal government says it is sometimes above being taken to court. And we'll see about that. These videos, and you're looking at stills from moments before both of the killings, are pieces of reality that we know now tens of millions of Americans have watched for themselves. That makes it hard for MAGA partisan spin, lies, or these so-called media filters to obscure what are these hard truths. Tough to face, enraging and outrageous to take in, but truths nonetheless. And I can tell you tonight, here we are, early in the week, that we are seeing these new headlines about Trump already forced to pivot from his mess, that his tactics have proved MAGA wrong, that he is, according to major outlets, changing course on this debacle. Now, those reported, quote, changes reference staffing or messaging, not changing the actual, likely unlawful policies on force and deployments, which we'll get to. The Trump administration's messaging began by pushing lies and a cover-up about executing 2 Americans. It included over the weekend false claims about Alex Preddy that were boosted on Fox News. Top Trump officials lied about Preddy's actions when the available video and evidence put them on notice. These were not harmless fog of war confusions. These were clear lies. They also falsely branded him a terrorist when he was exercising his First Amendment rights, as seen on video, and then gunned down by DHS agents. Fox News supported those false claims in the critical first hours and days of reporting over the weekend. The New York Times reporting how Fox anchors promoted the Trump administration's extreme claims that, quote, the slain protester had brought the violence upon himself. The tape showed he did not. His presence did not include any actions that meet the legal requirements for officers to use deadly force. And that, by the way, does not mean that they committed a crime. We have a system that would have to investigate that further. But we can already say, based on the plain evidence and reality before us, they didn't have the requisite legal justification to kill him. Now, Fox played that down. They minimized the available evidence that would contradict Trump administration's version of events. And the Times did a full review of Fox's weekend coverage, concluding most of that Fox News reporting on the shooting incorrectly supported the administration's misleading initial claims, the sort of Orwellian official version of this government killing. Now, as the story accelerated, the Times reports how one Fox contributor told viewers over the weekend, quote, when you're seeing a gun in your face and you're in the scuffle, then you have to, again, assume that is a gun. Preddy did not point a gun in anyone's face. Fox also featured another guest on air who asserted that Preddy, quote, put agents in a situation where they had to use deadly force, the Times reported. That is legally false. That coverage, that tone, was common on Fox over this weekend. It was misleading, to say the least. It failed to accurately reflect the available video or documented legal standards, which journalists and lawyers know because we've covered many use of force stories. Viewers relying on that coverage were being told this incident wasn't even a close call, that basically agents responded to a gun in their face. So they responded with their own guns, that they were countering a, quote, terrorist, someone who was dangerous and breaking the law. The evidence does not support that. Preddy was seen exercising his First Amendment rights and then helping a woman and then not breaking any gun laws because, as many Second Amendment fans knows and every lawyer knows, there are many parts of this country where you may legally exercise what are your constitutional Second Amendment rights. And that can include carrying a weapon. And it is not legal for the government to execute you for exercising that right. And perhaps people on Fox were aware of that line and felt the need to stretch. Only they can explain why they falsely suggested there was a gun in the face of the agents when there was not. Now, this is a network that already surrendered in one of the most costly defamation cases in American history when they were echoing Trump's lies after he lost the 2020 election. So quite a showing to go out there on behalf of Trump again with these statements that were not all true. And not only that, it didn't even last a week. Because by Monday, things you know if you follow the news, meaning other news channels or the video online or any number of reputable outlets, you probably know that what they were saying that weekend wasn't true. And this video evidence, plus the pushback, plus objections from Republicans, led Fox and its guests to start backing off those misleading claims. We have some new reporting tonight as part of our special report, and I want to read it to you. Trump basically saw that the misleading claims were failing on TV. The Wall Street Journal is now reporting that Trump's concerns grew as cable news commentators picked apart comments made by his top officials, with even some of his allies noting on TV their words were not supported by the video. And that fed Trump's worry that, quote, his administration looked chaotic, not strong, leading him to change course, a stunning shift, the Journal suggests, on a policy that's core to his political identity. So for Fox audience, just think about if that was your source of information. Viewers who watched Saturday tuned back in to find a contradicting presentation of reality by early this week. And that brings us to some video you also have to see. While we don't make it a practice here to re-air a bunch of misleading claims, unless there is a strict reason or accountability or reporting, I'm going to show you not the weekend stuff, but what we got to by early this week, as contributors and even some hosts took this all in, contradicted their own channel over the weekend, and this is how they've sounded this week.
I do believe that there was an unforced error with regard to the administration and their initial accounts of this shooting. Those accounts are not borne out by those videotapes. I
think that the extravagant statements by these DHS officials, ICE officials, and the DHS secretary over the weekend didn't play well.
It is politically disastrous for the president and also not the kind of civil society we need to live in.
Now, is ICE perfect? They're not. Can they do a better job? They can. Do I think that, some of the optics at times, do I think that going into Home Depots and arresting people there is a good idea? I don't.
We certainly should not be labeling him as being a domestic terrorist who is going to execute cops. There's no evidence to support that.
Such polling as there is, Brett, suggests that people think ICE and DHS have gone too far, and they're not winning the PR war in Minnesota.
That's the pushback on Fox. Other outlets in the conservative universe saying Trump should fire Kristi Noem. More Republicans disagreeing with this policy, expressing concern with the administration's falsehoods, that they're not even recognizing the tragedy of these Americans killed. Trump's approval on these issues crashing to lows shows that he's also lost some Republicans and independents writ large, no matter what they're watching. Now, Trump is only pivoting on message and maybe personnel. He is not pivoting on any policy here as they continue to send militarized policing to areas that Trump views as his political domestic opposition and urging on potentially violent, lawless attacks on human beings. Remember, Trump is doing this in certain places while avoiding using these exact tactics in some of the places in our country that have the most undocumented people, like Texas, which adds to the evidence that this is a politicized abuse of the power to police, to patrol, to detain, or kill, but it's one that he wants to use in this way and wouldn't subject what he sees as his supporters or fans to. So a pivot on staffing is not much, and even that is already feeding a MAGA divide. Trump vet Steve Bannon worries Trump is blinking in what they view apparently as a political battle. So this to them may be about showmanship and not the claimed goal of deportations.
I don't think you can call this anything but the White House blinking.
When Gil Scott-Heron said the revolution will not be televised, he meant he didn't think corporate media would broadcast any truth from the streets, from the protests. And his critique applied in so many ways. Some of that, though, is now breaking through. And the poet Nas warned in his song about propaganda, quote, "What's a Fox characteristic? Slick, censored misinformation, pimp the station, overstimulation. The sly fox locked in an idiot box. When is this ignorant crap going to stop? They monopolizing news, your views, and the channel you choose." Bars. Because artists who are in touch with what we might call the community, the revolution, as Gil Scott-Heron put it, the streets, they have seen the truth lied on so many times, from the line policemen all the way up to the top of the government. They have warned us. And yet here we are at a breaking point, one that stretches from our lived reality to those trying and sometimes now failing to lie to us about this reality we're living in, whether it is legal, whether it is moral, whether it is acceptable.